chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I am about to say right now. That uneasiness sitting in your chest this week, the one that feels like you are waiting for something but you cannot name it. Do not push it down. That is a signal. Someone confessed something about you recently, not to you, about you. And what was spoken in that room, in that conversation, in that private moment you were never meant to hear. God heard it, and He told me you cannot ignore what He is about to reveal. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. The truth about who you are and what you carry is no longer containable. It is breaking through the surface, and he knows that once you hear this, once the confession lands in your spirit and you receive it, the assignment against your life collapses. It all ends today. The hiding, the suppression, the silence of people who have known your worth and refuse to speak it. But hear me carefully, because this is the part that matters. It is not ending because of luck or timing. It is ending because of what you have endured without breaking. Think back to that moment this week, or maybe last week, when you sat in the silence of your own life and wondered if anyone actually saw you. Not your performance, not your output. You. Maybe you stood in a room full of people and felt completely invisible. Maybe you gave everything you had to a situation that gave you nothing back, and you walked away quietly, without demanding credit, without making it about yourself. You thought that moment was your lowest point. You did not know it then. But that specific act of quiet endurance was the thing that opened the door heaven has been waiting to walk through. You did not shrink in weakness. You stood in dignity. And that changed everything. You did not stumble onto this message. The algorithm did not surface this for you. The Spirit of God pulled you here because there is a confession that belongs to you, a truth that has been suppressed about your life, and you were divinely scheduled to receive it today. This is not coincidence. This is a court ruling being delivered. Stay with me through every second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to reveal the exact confession that has been made about you in rooms you were excluded from. I am going to walk you through the spiritual audit that shows you precisely why the people who overlooked you were never in a position to define you. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals the record permanently, so that what was spoken against you loses its legal right to operate in your life. Do not close this. Your future self is on the other side of what I am about to say. If you leave before the verdict is delivered, you walk out of the courtroom before your name is called. My name is Zarakiel. For years, I have been studying the hidden architecture of spiritual warfare. The confessions made in darkness, the assignments designed to keep chosen ones from ever learning their true worth, and the divine patterns that surface when a breakthrough can no longer be suppressed. More than 10,000 people have used what I teach here to step out of the seasons of invisible suffering and into the clarity of who God actually says they are. If this is your first time here, subscribe right now and turn on all notifications. Not for the numbers, but because the next message I release may be the exact word you need for the battle that arrives tomorrow morning, before you are even fully awake. Now, let me tell you about the lie. Because in the middle of this strange and heavy season, in this suspended place where you cannot quite move forward and you cannot go back, the enemy has been whispering something very precise into your thought life. He has been telling you that the reason people have not spoken well of you, the reason doors have been slow, the reason recognition has felt distant, is because of something lacking in you. He has been replaying moments for you. Maybe that moment when you did not defend yourself when you should have. Maybe the time you walked away from a conflict without saying the thing that would have cleared your name. Maybe the season when you went quiet and people mistook your silence for weakness or absence, or giving up. The accuser has taken those moments and built a case, and his verdict is this: you were passed over because you did not measure up. The confession being made about you is a negative one. The truth they are hiding is that you failed. But I need you to hear what the Word of God actually says about this moment. Romans 8, verse 31 says, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Hear that. Not who will be against us. The question is, who can be? Because if the Most High has ruled in your favor, no confession made in secret, no whisper campaign, No closed-door verdict about your worth holds any legal authority. None. The confession that matters was made by God Himself. Before you were born, before you made a single decision, before any room full of people decided whether or not you were enough. He declared you chosen. He declared you purposed. And that declaration supersedes every opinion spoken about you in every room you were never invited into. The people who did not see you were not disqualifying you. They were disqualifying themselves from your next chapter. The heaviness you feel right now is not the weight of being forgotten. It is the weight of a verdict being finalized. The tension you feel is not the beginning of another painful cycle. It is the end of the last one. You are not starting over. You are finishing. That moment when you walked away without demanding recognition was not defeat. That silence was a legal declaration. It said to heaven, "I trust the judge." And heaven responded, "The confession is coming. The truth about who you are cannot be hidden anymore. And you are brought here today to receive it before it manifests in the natural, so that when it arrives, you are not surprised. You are ready. What you just received was not a feeling. It was a filing, and I need you to understand the difference. Because most people mistake the moment of divine confirmation for emotion. They feel something stir. They attribute it to mood or circumstance, and they let it pass. But what just happened in your spirit was not a mood. It was heaven placing a document in your hands. And you do not hold the divine document passively. You read it. You receive it. You act on it. God doesn't reveal things by accident. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, the chosen one's mantle was written for this exact moment in your journey. 12 codes that decode why your life unfolded the way it did. And what God is activating next, so you can finally step into the life already written over your name. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it won't stay there forever. Now stay with me, because the revelation you've just received about that confession, the one made about you in rooms you weren't invited into, that revelation has layers. And if you only take the surface of it, you will feel good for a moment and then return to the same weight by tomorrow morning. I don't want that for you. So I need to take you deeper than the feeling. I need to take you into the architecture. Here is what you need to understand first. The people who held the confession about you, the ones who saw your value and chose silence, the ones who spoke about you privately in ways that never reached your ears, they were not acting in a vacuum. There is a spiritual economy at work that most people have never been taught to recognize. When a chosen one moves through a season of being overlooked, it is rarely random. There is a principality assigned specifically to the suppression of your testimony. Not because you are weak, but because your testimony, once fully released, dismantles narratives that have kept entire bloodlines and communities in captivity. The enemy does not suppress ordinary stories. He suppresses the ones that carry liberation in them. The very fact that your story has been held down this long is not evidence of your insignificance. It is evidence of your threat level. Think of Esther for a moment. Not the celebrated version of her you have heard 100 times, but the version before the breakthrough. She was in the palace, surrounded by access, and yet completely hidden. Her identity was a secret. Her purpose was dormant. She had proximity to everything she was assigned to, and yet there was a season when nothing moved. Mordecai told her that deliverance would come with or without her. But the question before her was not whether the moment would arrive. The question was whether she would be positioned to step into it when it did. What she had to do before she could walk through that door was break agreement with the identity she had been performing. She had been Esther, the queen's candidate. She had not yet become Esther, the deliverer. And the shift between those two identities did not happen in a throne room. It happened in 3 days of silence, fasting, and internal reckoning. The outer door did not open until the inner agreement changed. That is precisely where you are right now. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely. You have been praying for the outer door to open while still living in agreement with the inner verdict. You have been asking God to move people on your behalf while still half believing the thing the enemy has been whispering. That the reason the breakthrough hasn't come is because of something insufficient in you. And I want you to hear me say this clearly and without softening it. That agreement is a legal block. It is not just a discouragement. In spiritual architecture, an inner agreement with a lie gives that lie jurisdiction. It gives it legal standing to continue operating in your atmosphere. The confession that was made about you in the dark cannot be fully overturned in your life until you revoke the inner agreement that gave it permission to stick. This is where it goes deeper, because revoking that agreement is not the same as positive thinking. It is not repeating affirmations until you feel better. It is a deliberate, conscious act of spiritual jurisprudence. You are appearing before the court of heaven and saying, I withdraw my agreement. I retract the confession I made with my own thought life against myself. I revoke the permission I gave to that verdict by replaying it, rehearsing it, and building my decisions around it. That revocation is the first real movement in this season. And everything, every door, every divine connection, every resource that has been held in suspension is waiting on the other side of that moment. But here's the part no one wants to hear. And I need you to stay with me because this is where most people stop receiving. Some of you have been so faithful in your endurance that you've made an idol out of your suffering. You have held your pain so long and so carefully that it has become part of your identity. You are the one who endured. You are the one who survived. You are the one who kept going when no one believed. And none of that is false. All of that is true, and it is sacred. But there is a version of carrying your cross that stops being obedience and starts being attachment. There is a season for the wilderness, and there is a season to come out of it. And some of you have stayed in the wilderness past the appointed exit, because leaving the suffering meant letting go of the only identity that felt legitimate. If you are no longer the one who is enduring, who are you? If the struggle ends, what do you become? That question, unanswered and unspoken in the back of your spirit, has been keeping you at the border of the promised territory. Not the enemy, not the people who overlooked you. That unexamined question. And what's coming next will likely surprise you, because the answer to that question is not what you think it is. The identity waiting for you on the other side of this season is not a reward for what you endured. It is not a compensation. It is not even a promotion. It is a return. You are not becoming something new when this breaks open. You are returning to what you were before the world told you who to be, before the rejection, before the labels, before the seasons of invisible labor and unacknowledged sacrifice. There is a version of you that existed in the mind of God, before the assignments against your life were ever drawn up. And that version, original, unedited, uncorrupted by the verdicts of people who were never qualified to judge you, that is who is emerging right now. This is why the confession matters. Because the people who have spoken about you in private, the ones who recognized your worth and either suppressed it or finally admitted it, they are not the source of your identity. They are mirrors. And when a mirror that has been turned away from you finally rotates back in your direction, it is not creating your image. It is reflecting what was already there. The confession being made about you is not creating your worth. It is confirming what God established before you were formed. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share next is the part that breaks the cycle. There is a pattern I have seen repeated in the lives of people who carry exactly what you carry. It is subtle and it is devastating, and almost no one names it because it hides inside something that looks like virtue. It is the pattern of shrinking preemptively, of making yourself smaller before anyone can make you feel small, of stepping back from opportunities before the rejection has a chance to arrive, of staying quiet in rooms where your voice is needed because somewhere deep inside you have accepted the agreement that your voice will not be received. You call it humility. The enemy calls it containment. And the difference between the two is this. True humility moves forward with full confidence in the God who called you and releases the outcome to him. Preemptive shrinking moves backward in fear and calls it deference. One is surrender to God. The other is surrender to the fear of man. The reason you have been held in this particular tension, that suspended space between what you know God said and what your life currently reflects, is because those two movements have been fighting for dominance in you. And this season is not just about what God is releasing externally, it is about which movement wins internally. Heaven is not waiting for your circumstances to align. Heaven is waiting for your agreement to shift. Once it does, the external moves with a speed that will feel almost disorienting. Because what looks like it will take years to assemble has already been assembled. The only thing missing was your willingness to step into the room that was built for you, instead of standing at the threshold waiting for permission from people who never had the authority to grant it. And here's where it gets even more confrontational. Because I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer it honestly, in the interior of your own spirit. Who have you been waiting on? Not what. Who? Is there a person, a specific face, a specific voice, whose acknowledgement you have quietly made a prerequisite for your breakthrough? Someone whose validation you have been unconsciously holding space for before you allowed yourself to fully move? Maybe it is someone who hurt you. Maybe it is someone you love. Maybe it is someone who left. But their recognition, their admission, their apology, their finally seeing you, you have been holding that as the door you need opened before you walk forward. And what I need you to hear, clearly and without gentleness, is that God did not build your destiny behind that door. He built it behind the one you stopped standing in front of when you started waiting on them. The confession you need was never theirs to give. It was always His. And He already gave it. Which brings me to the final layer. The one that reframes everything. The one that I told you was coming. And now, it is here. You came into this message expecting the revelation to be about them. The people who held the confession. The rooms you were excluded from. The whispers you were not supposed to hear. You expected this to be a message about what they said and what they owe you, and what God is going to do to vindicate you before their eyes. And there is truth in all of that. But the deepest truth, the one that actually sets the captive free, is this. The most important confession was not the one made about you. It was the one made by you. Every time you told yourself you were not enough. Every time you agreed with the absence of recognition as proof of your insignificance. Every time you rehearsed the verdict of the people in those closed rooms as though it carried divine authority, you were making a confession. And that confession has had more power over the trajectory of your life than anything anyone else has said. Because you are a carrier of divine authority. And when you speak, even internally, even silently, even in the privacy of your own thought life, it carries weight in the spirit. This is where everything breaks open. Not when they finally see you. When you do. When you look at your own life with the same clarity that heaven looks at it. When you stop interpreting your seasons through the lens of the people who missed you, and start reading them through the record that God has kept. Every moment of endurance that felt invisible was witnessed and archived. Every act of quiet faithfulness that went unacknowledged in the natural was received in the spirit. Nothing was wasted, not the rejection, not the silence, not the season of invisibility. All of it was material. All of it was preparation. And all of it was building something in you that cannot be manufactured by success or recognition or the applause of rooms that should have been cheering for you all along. What was being built in the darkness is something that only darkness can build. And now, it is complete. The season of suppression is over. The confession is being released. The verdict is final. And you are not the person who walked into this message. Something just shifted in the spirit the moment that last truth landed. You feel it. That is not emotion, that is movement. That is the weight of a chapter closing and a new one being unsealed, with your name already written on the first page. Before you go, I need you to do one thing. Not for me, for yourself. Place your hand over your heart and speak this aloud. Say it like you mean it. Because I release every verdict that was spoken about me in rooms I was never invited into. I revoke every inner agreement I made with the lie that my worth was determined by who saw me. I withdraw the permission I gave to rejection, to silence, to the voices that named me by my lowest moments. I declare that the record God kept is the only record that stands. I am seen by the one whose seeing matters most. I am chosen before I was formed. I am purposed beyond what this season has shown. I step forward now, not waiting for their confession, not holding my movement hostage to their acknowledgement. I step forward because heaven already ruled. The verdict is mine. The door is open, and I walk through it now, completely, without looking back. If this word confirms something your spirit already knew, stay close to this channel. The next message I release will not be for everyone, but it will be exactly for the one who stays.